of Peace Studies and Conflict Solution, University of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, Imo State. The first presenter is the first presenter is Remile Sarumi. Yes. She's a lecturer in the Department of Politics and International Relations. She's a lecturer in the Department of Politics and International Relations, Lee City University, Ibadan. So welcome, Sarumi, to make her presentation. Then she has 15 minutes to do that. Thank you. Yes.
My voice.
Don't worry.
So it's like
I'll first.
okay. Good afternoon. My name is Remile Sarumi, a lecturer from the Department of Politics and International Relations, Lee City University. And the title of my paper presentation is Information and Communication Technology and the Insurgency in Nigerian Politics. All over the world, information and communication technology, which is now popularly known as ICT, has been introduced in order to improve effectiveness and efficiency in different governmental sectors. And ICT plays a unique role in advancement of policy and also to reduce the issue of insecurity. ICT plays a unique role in advancing policies and insecurity. For a recent time, the consistent insecurity in Nigeria has actually claimed many lives of citizens, and different efforts of government in order to improve this insecurity through the use of local vigilantes, military, policemen, local hunters, are not really losing interest. But introducing ICT gadgets such as the use of satellites, ICT gadgets, computers, closed satellite television, internet, and CCTVs, and so on, will definitely bring about desired results. This system is not just fast, but it's also, in terms of manpower and logistics, it's also very it's actually cheaper. So it's based on this that this study looks at how effective IT can actually improve public service delivery in politics and also to reduce the issue of insecurity in Nigeria. So the research first of all is one, what are the benefits of ICT in promoting politics and insecurity in Nigeria? Second one is, what are the possible hindrances to the implementation of ICT in the realization of the goals of politics and security in Nigeria? Also for easy and comprehensive understanding of this study extensively review existing literature to shed light on the main concept under study, whereby issues like the challenges of implementation of ICT on Nigerian politics were reviewed. And also, the study also looked at how ICT will be able to improve politics in Nigeria. The study adopts the communication theory, and the assumption of this theory is on how government is able to use this communication to improve decision making. This study also adopts the qualitative research approach. Also, first of all, okay, before going to the methodology, like I said earlier, I think the study adopts the communication theory, and the main reason, the assumption of this theory is on how government can use communication to improve decision making. And the assumption of this theory is on how communication can actually improve on how technology can actually improve. We are not going there as I'm confused. So applying this theory to this study enables us to explain how, why, and to what rate technology has been able to improve insurgency in Nigeria. So based on, like I said earlier on, I said the study adopts the qualitative research approach. So the result for the study, based on the literature that was extensively reviewed, the study revealed that ICT has been able to improve political goals in Nigeria in terms of effectiveness and efficiency through various determinants such as public service delivery, such as administrative effectiveness, political stability, government policies on how it affects performance. Based on the interviews that were conducted, the study shows that ICT has improved policies and political activities in Nigeria, but yet to fully utilize or tackle the issue of insurgency in Nigerian politics. So based on the findings, because the study concludes that ICT enables individuals and communities to participate in national and global policy decisions that can change their lives and further empower them to take decisions and action socially, financially, politically, and also benefit everyone. So also based on the findings and conclusions, the study recommends that government at all levels should make sure that ICT is fully utilized in order to conduct political activities. Thank you. And also
Okay, you can sit down. Come on. But later, people have your family. Okay, thank you. I wish to acknowledge the presence of my co-chair, Olatunde Olani, is online, and he has a presentation to make. And if he has any comments, he's also welcome to make his comments. Please, Olatunde Olani, we are inviting you to make your presentation with your co. Thank you. Please unmute your microphone.
Yes, good afternoon, all. Good afternoon, Doctor.
Please
I'm
introduce
sorry
yourself.
for the. Yes, oh, hi, Olani. I'm an officer of Nigeria and academic in Nigeria College. So I'll be presenting the paper on behalf of my lead author, Brigadier General A.P. Oguntola, who is the former provost of the college. The title of our paper is External Influences. I have the outline, the introduction, the theory and method. The
Please,
Sahel
Olani, switch off your
security complex.
That will help the network.
Is off. My video is off.
Yes, continue, sir.
Please,
Go
can you hear
ahead. We need more audio from you.
Okay.
I think
It's connection is very poor.
Yes, can you hear me this way?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
All right.
We can
So
hear
I
you.
continue. I said the contents. All right. The introduction, the theory and method is Sahel security complex, transnational security regimes in the Sahel, Western influence is the conclusion. Okay, by way of introduction, the protection of lives and property of states of the people is the primary essence of the state. This has been well established in the literature. The theories of origin of the state have established this. The social contract theories, which are the classical writings on why states were even established, and even into this time of modern age, states are meant to ensure and guarantee security, not only of themselves, but also of the citizens and residents in them. However, the security situation in African states has become worrisome, and this is not on the cannot be divorced from the very obvious security threats, such as terrorism, such as cross-border crime, transnational crimes, and all that, coupled with internal security in most African states. And most of these security threats are transnational in nature. That is, they work in transnational network. So the Sahel is a strategically significant geopolitical African environment, which stretches from the Atlantic Ocean to the Horn of Africa, to the other side. It comprises of Anglophone and Francophone countries, and it's a semi-arid region. Like I said, from the Atlantic Ocean even up to the Red Sea. So the situation has evolved. Security situation has evolved in this region, creating fears of increased instability. Instability in the region has been well established in the literature, from Mali uprising, even to Niger, to Sudan, and even Nigeria, the northern part of Nigeria, that is the northeastern part of Nigeria. So individual states in the region are making unilateral efforts, at combating insecurity issues. However, because of the transnational nature of the drivers of this security threats, this unilateral approaches, these unilateral efforts are become inadequate. So, given this has necessitated the creation of transnational security regimes. And for the purpose of this paper, we adopt theory, a combination of state fragility theory and collective security theory. And for the method of analysis, that is the method of data, we made use of a quantitative method with data gathered and collected from secondary sources. On secondary sources on two major transnational security regimes. For our purpose, we looked at the multilateral joint task force institutionalized by the Chad Basin Commission, which Nigeria is part of it, and the G5 Sahel Joint Force. So it's, according to findings, we saw that the effectiveness of these security regimes have far-reaching effects on the state of security in the Sahel. For instance, for the multinational joint task force that has been able to bring the security of terrorism in the northern part of Nigeria, bordering Cameroon, bordering Niger, bordering Chad. The security situation has been improved compared to what it should be. And given this, we are able to see that cooperation among states is important to solving security issues, since the causes and the drivers are also beyond boundaries or the national boundaries of individual states. So we also found that the security regimes are not of their own decolonial in the full sense of it. They are actually also being supported by Western powers. And these Western powers have, in most cases, made use of them to further their own interest. For instance, the force has received funding and has received practical support from the French government in supporting security or guaranteeing security where the French deem it fit, and not necessarily where there is conflict. And this shows that they still need transnationals in the Sahel to be decolonial, to be independent. And if this must be, there is need for a strong political will on the side of the political leadership of these countries. A strong political will. It is not enough for states to make laws. Laws should be respected and obeyed, especially laws relating to border and land border and ocean. The paper argues that transnational security regime has been of great benefit security situation in the region, and it is recommended that these these regimes should be strengthened from within. It should be institutionally strengthened from commitments from member states and not over reliance on support from foreign or Western countries, powers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Olatunde. Well, what an interesting presentation. Well, one takeaway we have from your paper is that the transnational security regime should look inwards to address the problem of insecurity in Africa, and also look at the role within the Sahel, strengthening the security sector to ensure that all these, insecurity or security threats are addressed. And you also said that the African continent has a lot of potentials if they are able to come together to collaborate in managing their own security instead of relying on external powers. Thank you for your presentation. I don't know.
Thank you, Doctor.
We have Lawrence. And this is Lawrence who wants to make a presentation. Let me confirm.
Lawrence, presentation.
Yes. Thank you. Please unmute yourself, Lawrence. Mr. Lawrence. Unmute yourself.
I've done that.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself and make your presentation. Yeah, welcome.
Okay, my name is Lawrence Adesanya, and I work with Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, and at the same time, I'm a PhD student in University of Ibadan. I'll be on security implementation of internal security management in Nigeria. By way of introduction, the security challenges in Nigeria is known to everyone, and as it is so enormous that only one security agency cannot really surmount or overcome the challenges as it is. So as a result of that, we are looking at a joint effort from different security agencies that are responsible for internal security management in Nigeria. And again, we try to look at history of security management in Nigeria from pre-colonial center era down to the colonial and post-colonial. We look at a different mechanism put in place to eradicate crime and violence in the society. But despite that, we observe that the crime continues to increase in the society. And that is why we are looking at this security regime as a solution to the internal security management in Nigeria. So as a result of that, the government came up with this joint task force. Because most of these security agencies, they are operating individually, looking at different internal security challenges in their own way. But when we look at joint task force, especially the civilian joint task force collaborating with military and paramilitary joint task force, we observe that they have tremendous assist in reducing crime rates in Nigeria. But then we have to look at we have to understand the meaning of security. When we look at security from the angle of human security, we understand that security has moved away from this state-centered way approach to people-centered approach. And as a result of that, security has become something very broad. It's not only looking at how state is being protected against external aggression, but how people in the state are being protected against violence and crime. And when we look at the definition of security by Nwolise, when you look at looking at it from the angle of spirituality, security should not be viewed in the area of physical security alone, but we need to look at the spiritual aspect of man, that we can take care of the physical, but what about the spiritual? And this is the area that so many people have neglected for a long time. But again, when we now come to the internal security management, we see that the internal security management has been broadened compared with initial way. That's a narrow way of defining security management, where you see only the state responsible for the affair of managing security challenges in the society. And as a result of that, now we look at agents of internal security management. When we talk about agents of internal security management, we are looking at those that are constitutionally responsible to manage the security of the state. But then, looking at it now, that even the public security sector, as it is, they are not really impressing the civilian or impressing people in the society. And that is why people clamor for in the involvement of civilian in the management of internal security. And that leads us to security joint task force as it is. But then before we go there, let us talk about a security regime. So security regime, according to Arsene Clever, it is set of implicit or explicit principle, non-rules, and this procedure around which actors' expectation converge in a given area or in a given issue. So when we look at it from that angle, we now discover that he's talking about different actors coming together, focus on a particular interest in the society. And in this case, we are looking at security issue in our society. It means that not only one actor can handle this matter of security challenges, but we need to have more people, especially those stakeholders in managing security appear in the society. And that is why we want to look at this joint task force. Can they translate into security regime, or are they security regime, so to say, in managing the affair of the state? So when we look at the cooperation among the security and the coordination at the moment, though we have so many operations around Nigeria, the one by the Nigeria Army, we have other that are joined among the paramilitary, and we have other joint task force that's comprises of the army and the other paramilitary agency in Nigeria. As a there are other challenges that militate against their achievement. In other words, they will have achieved more than this by now. But because of these challenges, that's why they couldn't achieve much. So we now look at the challenges. What are the challenges that are faced? One of the challenges recorded is this interagency rivalry that has really slowed down the pace of their achievement. Another one is the political influence. If I give instance of Ibadan, Operation Burst, when it was established by the government of Ajimobi, for the 8 years, Operation Burst really performed well in Ibadan because it was independent. There was no political influence. But when the state, the other government, that he appointed a civilian to head a retired general to head the joint operation. And as a result of that, there are occasions that they need to work, but they have to be slow down. All this bottleneck, they have to apply. So it's really affected the operation. So another one is underfunding. we noticed that when they commence this joint task force, the government easily fund them. And at the point, you will see them, they stopped funding them. And most of these joint task force are, at the end of the day, being, sponsored by the agency. So which affect their effectiveness. So another thing is the professional deficiency and the abuse of human rights. It has been recorded even among the joint and the civilian joint task force in Borno and other parts of the country where they operate. It was recorded that at a point it got out of hand that they were abusing people's rights, and people need to begin to condemn their activities. So most of these joint task forces, especially the one in the northeast, have been infiltrated, sabotaged here and there, where you see that they ambush them on the way because people link their information to the enemy, which means there are people implanted in those joint task force, and that is one of the challenges. Another one is sustainable. Joint task force. So we recommend that this joint task force is a cooperation among the security agencies, including the civilians, but they must have a joint training of officers, operational and cost and the management of inter-agency conflicts, because we discover, like the one in my state in Ibadan, there is this ongoing rivalry among the security agencies, especially between the army and the police. So as a result of that, even the police will oftentimes pull out of the joint security service because of what? They complain that they are the one in charge of internal security management and they cannot be taking order from Nigerian army. So it's one of the challenges they have. So in way of recommending that if they can have joint training and management of interagency conflicts as a cost before they commence such operation. Then again, JTF should be independent of the government, often set them up so that they can address the security challenges in the society. But at the same time, once they are set up by the government should allow them to run. Just apply them with the logic and allow them without them making decision for them. Then local knowledge is very important for all these officers. It means that they have to incorporate the local people in their operation. Not necessarily that they should be with them when they are patrolling, but there should be occasion where they can come together, discuss the challenges with the local people so that the local people can have input, because they understand their people better and they know their people. They even know the criminals among them. So when they work with them, they can easily put them right on how to, go about it. Another thing is other stakeholders, and that's we couldn't talk about. There is this epistemic community that security regime emphasizes on. So they need to incorporate other stakeholders. You cannot limit fighting. Those who are experts that can give them knowledge on how to operate and how to go about it. And most importantly is the aspect of spiritual security that Professor Nwole say hammered on. It is very, very necessary. If we are thinking of adopting African solution to African problem, then we must understand that the spiritual aspect of human of Africa is very essential. What do I mean by this? We must know that human being is both physical and spiritual. So there are things that happen to us that we cannot explain physically. And there are security challenges in our society that even the traditional people can handle better. Then again, this civilian JTF should work hand in hand with military. result. So, and in conclusion, so we want to say that internal security management must be a comprehensive and all-encompassing mechanism that consider all other in the security field. So, and some security regime like joint taxes and other crime and violence prevention are ideal for implementation of internal security mechanism. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lawrence Adesanya. He's a PhD candidate in University of Ibadan. He's also a staff of Nigerian Security and Defense Corps. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Please kindly remain online because there will be questions and comments for you.
Okay.
Before that presentation, Dr. Remy made a presentation on information and communication technology and insurgency in Nigeria's politics. We also have comments on that presentation. But before my own presentation, let me just briefly comment. One, there's an announcement. This panel is the second part of this post-colonial security regions panel. We had the first part in the morning. And the announcement is that please, after this conference, we'll give you like 2 months to strengthen your paper so that we'll be able to talk about the next step, because we have a plan of publishing a journal, national journal, and that will be a special issue journal on security in Africa. So that is one. Then secondly, briefly on Mr. Lawrence's presentation. Anyone who passed through University of Ibadan, especially through the tutelage of Professor Molise or his mentees, would understand what you are saying about spiritual security, because you know the world has moved beyond state-centric security. I remember those days, sometime as a postgraduate student in University of Ibadan, 2010, 2011, the first postgraduate lecture we had, the foreigner was invited from Europe, an expert. He focused on the security situation across the world in the post-Cold War era. You know, the world has gone beyond national security. So we are at the level of human security now. Because you cannot talk about the safety of a country without looking at your safety and my safety first. So that's it. And you have also said it that there is problem of interagency rivalry. In fact, this has remained a major issue. When we talk about security regimes, you know, you can't talk about security regime without talking about cooperation. But what is missing is that cooperation. And when you now see rivalry, you begin to ask yourself, what is the intention or what is the motive of even the security agencies that are working? And interestingly, you said that Oyo had a very good security apparatus operation board. And I remember that because during that period, a lot of criminal activities were contained. So that is it on Mr. Lawrence's presentation. So let me quickly make this presentation. Let me project CV. Yeah. Okay, let me decide it.
I've been trying to refresh.
So okay, let me decide.
Look at the name again. Lagos Studies Association 7 at Gmail.
Lagos Studies
Association 7.
Not 8.
Not 8. When you send it to it, that 8 is for the now.
We still have more than 5 pages. So let me Thank you. I sent this. Yeah. Okay, thank you for listening. Thank you, our audience. I will start with so sorry. 7. Yeah. Okay, let me do this time for presentation.
It's process. I listen to
Yes.
this.
It's not okay, you are not saying this. The association should be double S.
Yes. Everything is
It's fine. I see the Indian. It's
it's correct.
I was wondering. It's network actually. So let me just start. When it comes to objects, Okay, thank you.
It's so fine.
There's no attachment. There's no attachment. Yeah, thank you. So let me quickly start the presentation why the project. So yes, the title of my paper, I'm Dr. James Okelio Seminary from University of Agriculture, Omaha. So I call this paper with Latin organization. Title of our paper is Understanding the Mandates, Approaches and Challenges of Security Regimes, Regiments in the Sahel and Horn of Africa. And I want to start the presentation by saying that security is a major need of all state actors and human beings across the world. Although we know that the world is controlled by governments, that is the state actors, but the states cannot function alone without the support of and cooperation of non-state actors. So Africa, as a continent, has witnessed unusual security threats over the past few decades. And this has caused a fluid security situation, like we see in the Horn of Africa and the Sahel. So the African continent also witnessed the threats that made governments to begin to prioritize and rethink their security apparatus across the regions. And a good example, the Horn of Africa, for example, has been witnessing a lot of environmental and humanitarian challenges. And these challenges are not just drugs. We have climate change. We also have the security crisis. We have the presence of external forces and even insurgents. And the problem is that these forces have caused what we call current security dynamics that have to talk about territorial conflict, because this is concerned with territorial conflict as we see today in the Sahel and the Horn of Africa. Because when you talk about the Horn of Africa, we're talking about countries within that horn. When you look at the African map, you can mention Somalia, Eritrea, even Kenya, among others. There are many countries there. And the issue is that these countries that are insecure now have also created opportunities directly for those violent non-state actors to export terror from those territories to other safer regions of those locations. So we've also seen military threats in Mali, and even the Great Lakes in Africa. And Nigeria is not an exception. Of course, we've seen Nigeria's share of insecurity at the Lake Chad area, and that is the northeastern part of Nigeria. Remember that the insurgency, which was a Nigerian problem more than 10 years ago, is no longer Nigeria's problem. In fact, it has become an African problem. Why? The insurgents do not spare anybody. Whether you are a foreigner, white, black, whoever you are a target. So this is a major concern. And there's a report we saw while conducting this research. The report by United Nations Humanitarian Council for Refugees. It says that the situation in Somalia, we have estimated that over 74,000 people have been displaced in 2003, 2023. And remember, we are still in 2023. So meaning that by that estimate, more people will be displaced. Because this security in Somalia is still a major concern in Africa. So next slide, please. But this study is actually a qualitative one, which utilizes primary and secondary sources, including interviews with security forces, those involved in security regimes, policy documents, and journals. And next slide, we have research question. One, why do we have security regimes in Africa? This paper seeks to answer this question. Two, what are their mandates and approaches? Then three, the major part of this paper is to analyze the question of how do the challenges affect the mandates and operations of security regiments. Theoretical framework. This paper adopted regional security complex theory. I need to mention here that there are a lot of theories that look at security regiments. And when we talk about security regimes, we have different types of security regimes. We have traditional security regimes, which I focus on when I did my PhD in Ibadan. We also have regional security regimes. We have continental or international security regimes. But we need to know that specifically we have two major types that look at governmental security regimes and non-governmental. And within that non-governmental, you see traditional security regimes. Like those that presented the past in the morning. We saw how we discussed security regimes. Because when you are talking about security, it's not only the state that is a major actor. In fact, the state cannot work in isolation. The state must work with non-state to make sure that they succeed. So when we talk about regional security regimes, regional security complex theory, the theory which has proponents like Remsen, 2010, Vivi 2010, Busan and Weaver 2003 and 2009. The theory states that the nature of insecurity occasioned by the activities of non-state actors to government spaces to launch attacks on people, and this creates opportunity for member states of a particular region to cooperate in response to the security complexity. Yes, this theory recognizes the existence of security complexity. That is the first thing that this paper identifies. That is, there's a complex situation. And this complex situation now demands for cooperation. Ordinarily, no state would want to leave its internal politics and start playing politics of regional security provision with other states because a lot of resources are required. I can mention, for example, Nigeria, being a member of the Chad Basic Commission. I remember in 2018, federal government of Nigeria hosted a conference on insecurity in the Chad Basin. The conference was able to look at the way of revitalizing the situation in the Chad Basin because the lake, the lake is no longer the normal size it used to be. It has lost more than 75% of its original size. And this has contributed to internal displacement, migration of even farmers, people, including terrorists who are now moving from that Lake Chad area downward to the south. So this theory is relevant because it looks at how these states are coming together to look at a war addressing the problem of insecurity within the regions that are affected. And that is why they established the security regimes, which are aimed at containing the security threats through what we call collective security. And you know that collective security is a kind of confederal arrangement. That is, there are some principles. The states will go into agreements, treaties, to ensure that they are able to carry out the assignment as desired. Next slide. So, in the next few minutes, let me just talk about the major findings of the paper. There are some crucial findings. Johnson and Top 2013 talked about territory and interstate wars, intrastate wars. Yes. What we are talking about is that when you talk about security regimen, the issue is contestation. That there's this conflict over territory, struggle for control. Because when you see whether you call them secessionists or you call them aggressive states, aggressive neighbors, or violent non-state actors like extremists, there is something they look out for. They target territorial rights holders. That is, they are interested in having access. Like I told my students some years ago, the difference between terrorism and insurgency is that most times insurgents are in need, they are in desperate need of territory. But terrorists do not, as scholars maintain, do not have interest to control a territory. But don't be confused about this. Like some students ask me, yes, there are some insurgents that adopt terrorist tactics to operate. That is, they use terrorism as a tool to achieve their insurgency, they campaign. But that does not make them terrorists, because what differentiates terrorists from insurgents is that terrorists mainly focus on creating fear, using fear to gain international attention and the attention of government. While insurgents are interested in using the three major phases of insurgency: latent phase, war of movement, and the guerrilla warfare phase, to gain territory. And that is why this issue of territory and intrastate wars comes into this discourse. So the issue is that intrastate wars are the major challenge in many territories. Why? Because some forces, both states and non-state actors, are struggling for territory to control a place, because you need a place to carry out your campaign. Now, when you look at the Horn of Africa and the Sahel, there's a type of security situation that we can classify within the context of territorial behavior of the actors involved. That is, when you look at actors, we have special operation forces, we have other state actors, because when you have security regime, there are some forces that are special, they are unique, they are not seen anyhow, they are not seen every time. Like the Nigerian counter-insurgency operation, we have Rangers Special Operations Forces. They are special forces that they are sent to the most dangerous or notorious locations, like the Sambisa forest. So, you know, in military psychology, we have different approaches. And the approaches is not just, they are not just within the context of security, governance, and clearance operation, but the approaches look at how to displace, how to dismantle, how to neutralize some of these violent non-state angles to ensure that they do not engage in what Professor Abba 2017 referred to as forest holding and forest taking. So please, next slide. So continuing from the next slide, there are some security regimes I need to be mentioned the next week so that I'll conclude the presentation. There was this Sahel G5 forces, you know, Operation Bakane in the Sahel, organized by 5 Francophone states. And it was recently that the operation ended. And you can see what is happening in the Sahel, like Mali in particular, and Burkina Faso. That place is now a major insecurity hotspot. And you know, we have contiguous borders there. Contiguous borders, you know, borders that are linked. They are interconnected. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger. That is a location that has 3 different borders leading to the 3 countries. That place is a major area of concern to major world powers. And of course, the French forces have tried their best. They did a lot. Their special operations initiated counterinsurgency, but you know, the coup in 2012 in Mali also affected the security situation in that region. And we also have in the Horn of African Union forces in Somalia. Yes, that area, the problem with the security regime is that we know that Africa as a continent does not have a standby force as it's supposed to be. What we have is different countries contribute troops, like what you see in the Lechar Basin Commission, where multinational joint task force is led. Nigeria has a leader motivator role, leading in terms of funding and the supply of or contribution of manpower. You see countries like the Benin Republic, Niger, Chad playing just supportive role. Like there was a time when the Republic just supported with 150 troops and all that, while Nigeria has a lot of thousands of troops over there. And in African Union forces in Somalia, what we have is UN support them in training and a lot of resources. But the problem is that many countries are not actively involved in this kind of post-colonial security regime because a lot of them are just more interested in the internal affairs. And you also see a situation whereby there's discrimination. They have a lot of issues, language differences, like what we have in West Africa. Many of them see it as just one of Africa's problems. In fact, there are countries that have not recorded insurgency, if not recently than Mozambique started recording insurgency, like South Africa and many others. And then Egypt, if not for extremism, which is a global issue. These African Union forces in Somalia, they have done their best, but they are being challenged in various ways. And like we see in the Sahel region, where you have Boko Haram even becoming another threat. ISWAP is there in West Africa. You have other extremist groups. And the state actors are already overwhelmed in this kind of special operations. Please, next slide. So what are the challenges? How do the challenges affect special operations forces? I'll just mention this briefly. We have a lot of humanitarian crises. You cannot succeed as a security regime where majority of the people are hungry. There's starvation, drought is there. There's a problem because these people will end up being recruited by violent justice camps. Like I know from some of my interviews, I know that the insurgents in many countries, they engage in financial investment. They pay even people they want to recruit in dollars. And they also use, like the presentation was on information technology. They can stay in Somalia and even in Nigeria and recruit somebody in USA. And that is a major challenge. Why? Because a lot of people use we also have inconsistency of special operations in sustaining what we call forest holding. And this undermines federal operations in the Sahel and Horn of Africa. Example in the Sahel. The French forces, through Operation Barkhane, conducted special operation. And the moment they left, the gap or the vacuum is being filled by those violent non-state actors. That, in fact, is a waste of the Air Force put in. So this inconsistency is a major threat, and it was also fueled by porous borders. Because I know Nigeria, for example, has thousands of porous borders. At least as a student of the University of Ibadan, I saw with my eyes when I went to Ibaraba East local government, small glass, taking illegal from Ibaraba when we went for a program. And if you see, that's just one. There are other places in the northwest, northeast, even south, where people just easily cross into neighboring countries. And to make to just make the efforts of security agencies to be a waste of time. And the violent non-state actors are taking those places as their places of operation, that is their domains. And there's also a problem of deployment length. Yes, various special operations allow troops that were deployed to some locations to stay longer than necessary. Every special operation should be designed in such a way that troops are able to be redeployed after a period of time. It could be 6 months, 1 year, but a situation where a soldier mentioned that he has spent 3-4 years at a particular location fighting non-state angles, that's a very serious problem. Because the person has a family. In fact, he needed to have changed environment. Next slide. So there's also an issue of sustenance of security governance, like I said earlier, and clearance of pollution. And the issue of external intervention also affects some of these security regimes. The security regimes are also implicated in reprisal. Yeah, you know, the attack on civilian dominated areas, like when their members or their colleagues are attacked in front line by insurgents, they accuse some residents of giving out information to such people. Of course, we know about human rights abuse, like Mr. Adesanya presented earlier. There are a lot of human rights allegations, you know, against those special operations forces, and that's a major issue. And we have the issue of state failure. Yeah, failing states. Most of these states that are witnessing the footprint of security regimes, many of them are already fragile states. You can mention Somalia, even Mali. The governments are almost overwhelmed. They are almost overwhelmed. They are challenged by the activities of non-state actors. And where the problem is that African states cannot sustain, when we think that African states cannot sustain security governance and become self-reliant in the area of security provision, it's a major problem because there's this perception outside Africa that there's weak capacity. Yes, even when there's, you know, there are claims or fact that the states have weak capacity, they need to be given that opportunity to demonstrate their strength and also look inward, like the presenter said earlier. So conclusion. Well, this paper recognizes the fact that the issues of surveillance, militarism, and securitization have become synonymous with security regimes aimed at fostering stability and eradicating security threats in Africa. Yes, various security regimes operate in form of militarism. That is the use of security agencies, and it's just what we call coercive security. It's actually state-centric, and that is problem. And the moment they look beyond that state-centric level and go and adopt this collaborative security involving traditional regimes, I think that is one of the sustainable ways of achieving their goals. And the activities of violent non-state armed groups explain why some states in Horn of Africa and Sahel have become fragile with humanitarian crisis. Here, when you go to those locations, you see people are starving. You see people don't even have access to clean water to drink. It's a problem. So in conclusion, Africans will need to rethink their approach and consider self-reliance as a way of restructuring the security architecture to contain contemporary security threats across the continent. Thank you for listening. So please, let's take comment. Please, Olatunde, are you online? And Mr. Adesanya Lawrence of Civil Defense. Please, we need your comments, and the audience, people can also comment. Let's take them for people online, then we come to the room here. Yeah. Lawrence.
Yes, online.
Yeah, please, do you have a comment?
Yeah, that was a very nice presentation, Doctor. Now you've really opened us to new dimension of security regime, and the aspect that you mentioned on the porous border issue is a very serious issue that is affecting Africa, and especially Nigeria, of which we still have a long way to curb the activities of the criminality around that side. So that was a very nice. In fact, I think I will need your paper to even get more information on my own work. Thank you on that.
Okay, thank you. Please, Mr. Lawrence, before you go,
yes,
we want to know, does civil defense have any active role in enhancing more secure borders in Nigeria? Especially in the southwest.
Yes, we have our men at the border area. I know we have, and even there are some of them that are in the joint task force with army and police in some border area. You know, because we check the activities of these bunkers. So if you notice there is this one of the custom officers that talk about some of our oil being taken outside the country. That's you know, as a result of that, he has been under arrest like that. So we still have our officers too that checkmate the activities of bunkers that usually take oil from Nigeria to other country. So we have our men around that side.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, please, Dr. Remy has a question for you, Mr. Adesanya.
No, Lawrence.
Okay.
Lawrence Adesanya, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence, I so well done for that presentation. Yeah, but you keep in your presentation, you keep making like emphasize on the issue of spirituality in the issue of security. Are you trying to say that government should legalize spirituality in terms of insecurity in Nigeria? Because I keep hearing you saying that mentioning spirituality and spirituality, we should adopt the old ways, and so I want you to explain more. Are you trying to say that government should adopt the issue of spirituality in security matters?
Yes, yes. I must tell you that I've been an advocate of spiritual security for some reasons. Yes, as a member of security sector, government owned, I know the role that spiritualism have played in some of our operations. I'm looking forward to a period that we have a government that will begin to or pass a law to that effect. And it must be regulated. Seriously, it must be regulated. There are cases that Professor raised in the inaugural speech and other book he had published, making reference to cases of spiritual threats. Even there are occasions that we have gone on the operation that you'll be threatened spiritually. You will see it at work. In fact, there are occasions that you'll be firing at people, you'll be shooting at someone, and that gun will not penetrate. So there are instances as African, we believe and we know this. Though the government is just to believe it, there are occasions that you cannot even prove it in the court of law. Somebody attack you with jam, with all this kind of a spiritual attack. How do you prove that in the court of law? Because there are no legal basis for it. So somebody can be attacked. Imagine, okay, let me give you an instance of something that happened in Lagos. Last year, this Christmas Day, that a woman was shot on Christmas Day. And we find out that this man, the policeman that shot this man, just how many years left for him? Imagine. And the track record shows that this man has not been found wanting in any criminality or other unethic attitude in police. So how do you justify, or how do you prove that is not a spiritual, there is not a spiritual element in it? Government will not believe that, but it proves that it could be a spiritual attack against the woman or against the police. There are so many instances that these things are happening that we cannot really prove it. Government does not believe in spiritual elements of our existence.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Olatunde Olani, please, you have, I think you have comments here. Please quickly do that. You have just 10 minutes. Okay. Okay, before Olatunde Olani, kindly ask your question. Yeah, thank you. Yes.
For me, it's a very big challenge in Nigeria. Especially also link it to this Japanese law that's going on everywhere. I have a mentor who is a consultant in university. And then all of a sudden I heard that he, his wife, and 4 children, they have done back home. And I'm like, I thought this that thing is for young people who are looking at pastry. And then my mother spoke with me. First thing he told me like, my family needs to be safe.
Sure.
We need to be safe. And that was so busy enough for me because of security. So I was just wondering, and I wasn't here earlier when I knew that fascinated about communication.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm happening with communication. So I want to know what role exactly do you think communication can play in helping to fight Nigeria's national security? Then communication and technology, obviously. Then Mr. Fu, you also mentioned the traditional security management, something like that. So I know that in some states, we also there's the government trying to this
local,
or something in the traditional. So do you think that is very feasible? That's something that Nigeria can
adopt.
or develop upon to help tackle these issues.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, so first I have a question for our first presenter, Mr. Olani. So first, you mentioned that those transnational security organizations should get support from within instead of from external superpowers like France. So my question is, what if there is a lack of political will among those member states, like to really to coordinate with each other and to take more collective action against those security threats? And also I have a question for James.
Okay.
I have 2 questions. First, you mentioned about the regional conflicts. Yes, the theory, right?
Yeah.
So yes, I remember that in his book he mentioned about the West Africa as a cultural complex.
Okay.
And he especially argues that Nigeria is at the brink of failure.
Yeah.
So how like if he holds such view, I'm curious about your opinion about like Buddha's argument about West Africa and Nigeria. And my second question is that I think this is a very interesting point. You mentioned about the difference between service and towers, right? So they are have very different purposes.
Yeah.
And my question is, what about their consequences? Do you think like the consequences that we want to very different as or maybe we share some common features?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, you want to respond to that, or you have to comment to me. Partially in support with this way. You see, there's a disconnect. It's sometimes when we mention the issue of spirituality, sometimes we take it to the extreme. Before now, if you look at the pre-colonial society, if I'll give you an instance, the Oba of Benin before, once he makes a pronouncement, particularly that has to do with things like kidnapping, you dare not. But what has happened? These days, you see, even the Oba himself is being kidnapped. So at what point did we get to this point? What really happened to our system? I think we have to go back to that level, and perhaps if we can connect it to the issue of that spirituality topic. Because then it was something that was intertwined with religion and the culture. You dare not. Even within Yoruba land, then, if they are allowed to make a pronouncement, they know they are allowed in his talking. If the Yoruba makes a pronouncement, they know he's talking. Nobody dare goes to that community. If you try it, you are gone. I do my own point. Mr. Lani, please, do you have a comment? Let's know, Lani. Unmute your mic. Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. It has been an insightful session on the panel, and I must say that the panelists have done justice. Hello, I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Please be audible.
Be audible. Add more audio.
Okay. All right. I want to speak to the presentation made by.
You have 1 minute. You can't hear it. Okay, before the talk, let me just quickly respond. Okay, respond.
Okay, for the question.
Yeah.
I said, what
The-
program?
the internal security responsibility lies constitutionally with the police, and that has been, and that is the legal provision. Albeit, given the enormity of the insecurity threats, bringing in the intervention of the military and calling for a joint framework for better internal security. Well, whenever there is interagency framework, this, I suppose that there will definitely be hierarchy in terms of institutions. It is just like in the academics, like you have college, you have universities, you have coming to form a kind of a framework. Definitely, by hierarchy of institution, I suppose that individuals in the framework understanding where the hierarchy of their institution is, coming to terms with the position of their institution, then working in the light of that for the common good of the Nigerian society will be a solution. Because definitely we cannot all be on the same pedestal. But if we have the interest of the country, if we have the interest of the common man at heart, I suppose that with that, the interagency rivalry will be reduced. My submission.
Thank you.
Okay, for the question, what role can communication play in improving national security? Okay, there are two ways or methods in fighting the issue of insurgency in all over the world. We have the soft and the hard approach. And the soft approach is like what my paper is trying to look at, which is the use of information communication technology to tackle the issue of insurgency. Right, the hard approach is the use of all these military, police, and everything. But the truth is that when we look at, though the Nigerian government started adopting this soft approach, in some aspects to tackle this issue of insecurity in Nigeria. But this is that when you keep seeing a particular incident happen on the same road, in between, for instance, let's say in between that Lagos to express road, you keep hearing the issue of kidnapping and so on. So I believe if the federal government could adopt this use of ICT devices such as the use of satellite and some other model that the developed country has actually using, it will actually help in solving this issue of insurgency in Nigeria. I think that they don't really use it because it's very easy. In between the same environment, where that even then the issue of Borno State, Sambisa Forest, if it's just in between that place, if government could actually use this ICT devices to fight this insurgency, it will be very, very easy for them to attack with the hard approach. And this will actually improve the issue of insecurity or insurgency in Nigeria.
Thank you. Well, let me quickly respond because we have just about 1 minute or so. Thank you, Mercy, for your comment. In fact, you said that security is a big challenge, and it's not. Yes, you are correct. It's a major problem now. Security is a major problem, and many African countries. And I want to say that yes, Nigeria can adopt traditional security regimes as a way of complementing the efforts of security agency, because, like I told somebody earlier, at the sidelines of what we're having in this thing. I told the person that the state cannot pretend that it doesn't need non-state actors. The state needs intelligence, like Mr. Adesanya said earlier. The issue of intelligence is not what the state will rely on security agencies alone, because there are some areas that the state does not have active or effective footprints. So those locations require the presence of traditional security providers. And secondly, Dr. Go, thank you for your comments. In fact, the issue is that various forces of order need to be more disciplined. Like you said, if insurgents are able to communicate, they are able to prioritize communication and information communication and technological revolution. I don't see why state actors cannot do better. But what we see is recklessness in some quarters. Because if somebody can recruit somebody from US, even like when I went to France, I told some people earlier, I was shocked the way the security forces were heavily armed at this airport. Why? Because of their children, some of their citizens that were indoctrinated elsewhere. And you cannot tell them to go, not to come back. They will come back. But when they come back, like you hear knife attack, shootings at public spaces and all that. That is the reason. Why? Because they have been indoctrinated. They were recruited. And in fact, we have a lot of foreign fighters in the Middle East. Many of them are from Europe, US. Like if you see the shootings in US going on now, a lot, has gone wrong. And thank you secondly for that. The issue is there's this collapse of traditional values. Because what you said, what is happening now did not happen in the past. Why? Because we had high regard for traditional values. Nowadays, people want to just either have money by all means or travel abroad. They don't respect that, they don't respect the spiritual leaders again. So that, then lastly, that we say comment. Well, when we look at insurgents and terrorists, they have a common, they have a feature that is unique and is interrelated. That is, they use the instrument of violence. They both create fear. But the difference is that insurgents have a long-term plan, while terrorists have a short-term plan. Terrorists, of course, they can infiltrate government institutions, civil environment, but their interest, the core interest of terrorists is not to have territory and govern it. No, insurgents are more interested in territorial rights to struggle for territory with the state, hoist their flag, and even talk about taxation, taxing the people, collection of taxes, and all that. But there's a challenge. As the youth violence, a lot of people are beginning to lose hope in the authority, the capacity of the state to govern them. And that is why the insurgents are now becoming alternative, forces of order. That is, they embrace them. Where the state fails to demonstrate capacity to govern the people, like in terms of security governance, provision of social amenities and all that. And that is why we are having state fragility in the Sahel and the Horn of Africa, because this is the major issue. In fact, they see insurgents like what we see now, banditry in the northwest, where they even go and collect cash from farmers. And the question is, where is the government? Where are the security forces? It doesn't just begin and end with militarism, bombardment, although after the bombing, like what Saba said, forest holding and taking. Are you going to sustain that initiative or the campaign? And in conclusion, well, the scholar said that Nigeria at the brink of collapse, the possibility of collapsing as a state. Well, I don't think it is going to happen. Why? We have our destinies in our hands as a country. The people of Nigeria still will decide and determine whether it will happen. But the moment we give up, then the violent non-state angles will succeed. But if we come together, support the government like we have a new government, since insecurity does not respect anybody, you and I, we are here because the roads, the airports are safe and the environment is safe. But if the environment was not safe, we wouldn't have come here to even talk about content. So I think that is where everybody must have a common ground to discuss and cooperate to ensure that there is safety for all. So that is my response. Thank you. So here comes the end of our panel. I really appreciate everyone that made it possible. And I must thank LSC for making this panel possible. LSC has given us the platform. And I believe that the discussions will continue. We have our social media handles, emails are there, phone numbers. So we need to network, continue the discussion. And like I said earlier, this panel, part 1 and part 2, the goal is that we will have a special issue produced from this panel. And it should be something we consider publishing in Europe and maybe America. But by God's grace, I am Lasinde Olani will discuss that to see the way forward. We'll communicate with every presenter. At least we are going to give you up to 2 months to strengthen your paper so that when it goes through peer review, people that don't know, at least they will recommend the paper, scoring it at least 3/5. And that is our intention. And we also hope that next year LSC will be able to do something better than what we did this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you for organizing this panel. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.